right, guys, welcome back. It is the Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton, and I'm sitting next to
Philip Lewis.
We have a special guest today, and we are going to talk about losing 100 pounds, 2 different occasions, which is pretty uncommon, I think. And we're going to talk about what went wrong, what went right. We're going to dive into the mindset behind this, because I think it's so cool to see someone lose that type of weight. We'll see how it impacted her everyday life, and we'll get an idea of what that journey looked like, because we are sitting with Sarah Helms, and Sarah Helms has been at Vitality. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, before you started doing anything group fitness wise, you just did the nutrition challenge 3 years ago.
That's correct. I started in January of 2019.
And you weren't coming to the gym at that time. Daniel was at the gym?
No.
Daniel was not at the gym. So Sarah's husband, Daniel, also comes to Vitality. So how did you talk us through the start 3 years ago? How did you get into this nutrition challenge?
Yeah. So my mom is a nurse at the local hospital, and Teresa Houston, she knows her through work, and Teresa was like, keto this, keto that, and you need to come be a part of this nutrition challenge at Vitality. And so my mom mentioned it, and she was like, I'm gonna go to this seminar tonight. Do you want to come? And I'm like, no, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing, enjoying myself. And she went and sent us the information, and I was like, well, I've heard a lot about keto. I should give it a try. And I convinced Daniel to do it with me, which was huge because he would not touch a vegetable or a fruit at that point in time. And so we hit the ground running in January 2019.
So you came in, you listened to Jess's seminar, you did the challenge, and one of the things that Jess and I talk about every year is it's challenging to get people to do the 6-week or 8-week challenge and then stick with it after that. What we found is a small percentage stick with it. Most will fall back and gain some of that weight back, and then it's kind of this cyclical annual deal where you'll come January, February, you're ready to be motivated again. And then by March, April, May, you're kind of falling off again. So you did the nutrition challenge. What happened after the nutrition challenge? Did you have a ton of success on the nutrition challenge?
I did. I don't remember exactly how much weight I lost in the challenge, probably around 15 to 20 pounds. And that was enough within 6 weeks that I was feeling really good. I wasn't as tired and lethargic as I had been previously. And there was just something about keto that was clicking for me. Early on, I had nightmares about eating bread in my sleep. But once I got through those, I was feeling good, and just sort of iterated that it felt like an all or nothing approach. Like, I didn't want to get off of keto because I had become fat adapted over those 6 weeks, and I just wanted to keep that rolling.
Yeah. Keto is an interesting concept. And I remember it was probably 7 or 8 years ago that Jess and I started to look into this, and I thought it was the craziest thing in the world. How in the world am I going to eat all this fat, not eat any carbs, limited protein, and this is going to work for me? And then I remember doing it. I did it wrong for 3 months. And you know how wrong you have to do it to have your wife be the nutrition expert, tell you exactly what to do. And I still was like, nah, I'm going to do it my way.
I got this.
I got it. And I screwed it up. I had too much protein, and I couldn't get into ketosis for 2 or 3 months. I was miserable. I hated it. And finally she's like, do you want to listen to me now? Or, but it's such a, when it clicks, it had to have felt amazing, because now all of a sudden, for the first time in your life, I'm sure you went through this period where you weren't starving, you weren't hungry, you didn't have those cravings that you had, I would imagine, for your entire life before that.
Exactly. The huge thing is, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had control over my appetite. I could turn things down that I never could turn down before. And it became easy to pick out what foods to eat. It became easy to go out to a restaurant and stay keto. And that was what I liked about it, is it fit into my lifestyle really easily.
So talk to me now. This was the second time. Now talk to me the first time. How long ago was your previous success where you had lost almost 100 pounds the first time? What did you do during that period? And then we'll talk about why that kind of fell apart. What was unsustainable with it?
Sure. The first time around, it was probably about 4 to 5 months before I got married in 2010.
Okay.
And I saw a doctor in the area that prescribed appetite suppressant pills and HCG and an extremely low calorie diet. And as long as I was on the pills, it was fine. But then as soon as I came off, it was just unsustainable.
So as long as you were taking those appetite suppressants, you were good.
I was good.
Was his or her plan to keep you on that the entire time?
Honestly, I think I ended up being on them for about a year, which is much longer than the recommendation. And, I don't think there was ever any talk about sustainability outside of that period. It was just about, okay, let's get you to your goal and then bye.
Do you know how many calories you were taking in roughly?
I don't. It's been so long ago.
Yeah, but it wasn't many.
It wasn't many.
So once you finished, you came off those pills, you had lost close to 100 pounds. How quickly did that weight come back on?
It wasn't quick at first. I mean, maybe like 20 pounds came on pretty quick, but then it slowed. And then I got into having children, and my weight cycled a lot with that between being pregnant and then postpartum. It just became a yo-yo over that time period.
I think it's really challenging for people when you don't have a sustainable plan in place and you start to kind of encounter these life changes. It really forces you into a corner like, okay, well, I can either put my effort into my nutrition or I can put my effort into my kids and my family. And it's always, most parents are always going to say, okay, well, listen, I'll sacrifice my nutrition for, my family. And it almost has to be that way, because if you don't have that discipline set or that sustainability set, it just takes up too much time. I mean, it would take up so much of someone's time to try and invest the amount of effort it would take into that nutrition. Whereas now, my next question to you would be, so now you've got the key principles behind it. Is it very easy for you to kind of go through week by week and not have too many issues? It's
second nature now. Early on, not even for the entire 6-week challenge, like it was maybe 1 or 2 weeks that things were really kind of tough. But once I got past that initial period of, okay, what do I eat? What don't I eat? It's easy. And now, like, I see bread, I'm like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
It's just very second nature. Everything I go for is keto these days.
Philip just started keto. How many months? I mean, it's
been 4 months now, 5 months.
And it's funny. I would imagine he had the same reservations to where you're like, man, I'm going to give up bread. I'm going to give up. Man. Not that you're a cereal guy, but a lot of people would look at no cereal, no bread. There's so many things that you not a lot of fruit.
Rice, bread, and
I miss
brownies.
Fruit.
Rice, bread, and brownies was that. I was like, man,
yeah,
I ain't getting rice no more. I can't have I don't know.
And I think that's if people can give it the amount of time to let your body cycle out of those cravings, for me, I remember never, it wasn't hard at all. I know exactly what you mean by, I wasn't sacrificing anything. It's one thing if you're like, oh man, I'm not going to have that cake, but I really want it.
The great thing about keto is with the erythritol sweetener, I can bake all sorts of treats that are even more delicious than the sinfully ones.
Yep. Now, the other thing that was very interesting to me is we get a lot of people that will stick with something and then they plateau, and then they kind of get stuck in this rut where they can't kind of break through. And going through your story, I'll hit the wave points, and then you can kind of talk through each one. And what triggered it? But first, you have the keto diet. Then you have the EvoFit. So you added a nutrition or a fitness component into it. Then you added some strength training and did some PT. And then now you're doing macros. So talk me through what was the trigger for you that said, okay, you know what, I'm going to add some type of fitness component into this?
Sure. So it was very intimidating coming into the gym.
People like Philip make it really intimidating. I know. He's all tatted up. He's this big monster of a guy,
Yeah, that's true.
Doesn't smile that much. It's tough. So yes, I can get that.
I'll never forget coming to one of the gatherings for the challenge and looking down into the gym and seeing like the CrossFit Open on a Friday night. That was really cool.
I'm not going down there. These people are crazy.
Like I don't belong down there. But Jess kept encouraging me, maybe you want to check this out sometime. And when that summer came in June, my husband's a school teacher. So we just had a little bit of extra time on our hands. And like, if we're going to do this, it's now or never. So we took that jump, and he was coming with me to EvoFit. And so it was nice knowing that I wasn't doing it alone. And there were some movements I couldn't do. I couldn't do an up down. Like I had to modify an up down, and now I can do burpees. And but everybody was really great to work with me to make sure that I didn't feel out of place. Like I had modifications. My husband was there cheering me along, and now he's on the CrossFit side. He left me behind at EvoFit. But it ended up being not as intimidating as I thought it was.
Yeah. I wonder how it would have went if you didn't have your nutrition dialed in. I always say that it works in layers, and each layer becomes easier when you have something else. So if someone's nutrition is dialed in, the fitness component becomes a little bit easier. If someone's nutrition is all over the place, it's a little more challenging to get them to be consistent in the gym. It can be done. It's just not very common. And we see it all the time to where when you talk to people, Milton is somebody that's been here for almost 11 years. He'll be the first one to say it. When his nutrition kind of goes off the rails, the first thing to go is his desire to come in here and train. And I think maybe that was one of the reasons why you had some successes. You had that so dialed in, you were just like, okay, you were already disciplined with that, and now it's a little bit easier to layer in the fitness component.
I would definitely agree. Like I didn't feel sluggish because I was eating the right things, so it didn't set me back. Even though I was extremely sore for about the first month or so, it wasn't as hard to get up and come back the next day.
So then tell me about PT. So personal training started how long after your group classes?
So I started PT in March. Actually, I think it was maybe April of this year.
Okay.
And so a little bit, we did take a break during the pandemic. So we were away from Vitality from like March 2020 to the end of February of 2021. And I had been back for about 6 weeks, and we were in a car accident where I broke my right hand. And I was so happy to be back. I'm like, I'm done with this pandemic, broken hand. I'm not having anything else set me back. And so I reached out to Brent, and because of EvoFit, I was like, Brent, what can I do now that I have a broken hand? And he was like, let's get you set up with PT, and I'll keep you working in EvoFit. And so I started working with Nate Agnew for PT, and he got me through the broken hand. Like I didn't miss any time. And now we're working on strength training, and just this summer I started using the barbell, and it's really addicting. I like it a lot.
Next thing you know, we're going to have a nutrition challenge, and there's going to be totally new people in there, and they're going to look down and see her down at CrossFit and be like,
and we're going to be like,
crazy.
Sarah, take it easy. You're scaring everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to be one of those people you looked at in the window for too long.
That was something that Jess talked about is the strength training and how your body responded to that just with muscle mass. And, we can get some of those gains through EvoFit and with the torpedoes and with kettlebells, but when you can really dial in a strength program that's specific to you, I think that was an interesting piece of this that really helped kind of push you through that next piece. And what was it like? Did you enjoy working with Nate?
Yeah, and I've enjoyed it so much that I haven't stopped. Like I'm still doing it every week, and he's a lot of fun to work with, and he knows his stuff for sure.
Yeah, I think that's something that people really they underestimate how much they enjoy kind of that one-on-one interaction. And we've been really lucky to have some really good trainers that not only know what they're doing, but can actually communicate with people and talk to people. And we've had so many podcasts where we talk about how that's such a lost art these days,
really
to be able to
is.
have a conversation with anybody. So I think that's part of it where again, at any point in time, like if you would have came in and Jess wasn't as supportive as she is and didn't have the knowledge that she had, or then all of a sudden you came into EvoFit and you didn't have a good experience with EvoFit, or you came in and didn't mesh with Nate and he didn't really put the time into you that you needed. Any one of those things could have derailed the whole process. And I think that's what's so hard to, not that we're doing it right by any stretch, but it's so hard to find all the right pieces and then be able to deliver that in a way that makes someone want to continue to do it. And that's when you see someone like you that comes in and loses 100 pounds and now is on autopilot with their nutrition, is got a barbell in their hands, which I think is the great, if you looked at the most perfect way to onboard someone to this process, it would be exactly, you would be the prototype to do this, because you get your nutrition dialed in first. By no means are we saying that you have to do some type of nutrition first, but when you have the discipline to come in and dedicate the nutrition piece of this, then there's so much more inclined to be successful on the fitness side. And then from the fitness side, you go into PT, and now you get a barbell in your hands. Well, now we've had all this time to build the trust and the relationship. And now I put a barbell in your hand. And that is usually where our females, they just love it, because they haven't grown up lifting. For some reason, some genius along the way said that girls shouldn't have a barbell in their hand.
They shouldn't have muscles.
They shouldn't be muscular. Or shouldn't lift weights.
The one thing that always drives me nuts when guys will say, "Oh, she looks like a man." I'm like, why don't all men look like that?
Or
then?
she's too bulky.
Or she's too bulky. Like, what does that mean?
It's just crazy. And I feel, this type of thing is what's so healthy for these young girls to see people like you that didn't grow up. Did you play sports growing up?
Some, but I mean, my weight's been a lifelong struggle for me. So
like all the way back?
All the way back, ever since I was a child.
So have you ever been this fit?
No, right now I weigh about what I weighed in high school, but I'm probably more trim and fit than I was then.
It's more muscle. It's more like...
It is. Yeah. It is more muscle.
That's awesome. So now, have you been checking in with Jess all the way through this? Did you have some time away from that during the pandemic? Were you on your own?
During the pandemic, I was on my own, and it was touch and go. I mean, I stayed keto for the most part, but what happened was I made those keto treats, and so my fat intake was probably really high, and then also my alcohol intake was higher than normal through the pandemic. And so when I came back in January of 2021 for the challenge, it was like, okay, Jess, let's forget about 2020. I thought I had managed to maintain my weight, but towards like Thanksgiving and Christmas, it started ticking up, and it's like, okay, let's get back on the right track. And the challenge this year just really helped me to get off the alcohol and get off the sweets and get back to strict keto. If
you want to feel better about yourself, when you say your fat content had ticked up a little bit, before I stopped keto about 7 months ago, I said, man, something's not right. I'm just going to track my fat for a couple days and see. I was just a shade over 400 grams of fat a day. So you can understand that I may have, and I wasn't having keto treats. That was real food. That was butter and meat.
Yeah.
And see, Daniel was the same way. I mean, he was having 200 grams of fat, but he's able to do that. His body type can handle it.
But it wasn't your fault, though. Remember, it was Ned Agnew's fault for showing you Nisa's sausage.
Yep. Yeah. Everybody said, oh, this Nisa's sausage is the greatest thing ever.
It's really
so I
good.
go and find it, and it was amazing. I would have a sleeve of Nisa's sausage.
It's so good.
And I was like, this is amazing. Like 94 grams of fat in that thing. So I feel you, but I can promise you that I'll raise you about 300 grams of fat from what you were upticked. So at what point did you and Jess decide to go from keto to macro-based?
So at the end of the challenge, I lost probably about 8 to 10 pounds with the challenge this year, but didn't feel like it was coming off as quickly as it could. And she was like, I think it might be good for you if you tracked your macros. And so she calculated them for me, and I started that in February, mid to late February. And I was real hesitant at first because to me, even though I've been eating keto, that was still an intimidating part of it, tracking my macros. And Dale had been tracking his forever. And honestly, he was a little bit of annoying about it, tracking his macros, weighing everything out. But But it was a good thing because I was able to transition seamlessly because he had been doing it. We upgraded to the gold plan on chronometers so that I could just take everything he had already put in to chronometer and
use it.
Yeah.
So now, switching gears, Daniel, how would you describe Daniel's body type? I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at Daniel by any stretch. I'm just laughing because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, Sarah loses 100 pounds and Daniel would probably be cool with gaining like 40 pounds. You know, he's a lean, he probably weighs 155, 100 pounds, something like that. And so here you are struggling with the weight and Daniel
wants it.
He can't keep it on.
So how was that dynamic?
I think it bothers him more than it bothers me. Like I knew that when I married him. When I met him, he was maybe 130 pounds. I did manage to put a little bit of weight on him. When we first started keto, he had to drop some weight. But he's really good. He doesn't rub it in my face, and I just kind of ignore the fact that he sits on the couch and eats peanut butter and chocolate chips.
Yeah.
That's like my dream. So he's throughout this. Has he been as disciplined trying to gain weight as you have? Trying to keep the weight off, and
he's very disciplined, although he's able to sort of take those breaks more so than I can. He can eat the bread or the biscuits or the treats and it not really affect his it doesn't really affect the scale or his muscle mass, that sort of thing.
Do you think if you had to put your finger on one of the reasons you've been able to stay successful, is it because of the support structure? I'm positive your mom has been ridiculously supportive of this. Daniel's probably super supportive of it. Do you think that is a part of it? Do you think it's the accountability of having to come in and meet with Jess on a monthly basis? What do you think is the driver behind some of the success you've had? Or was it just a mindset that you said, you know what, I am done with this. I'm going to be as strict as I need to be with this because I'm ready for a change?
That's an excellent question. And, I don't think I can put a finger on one thing. I think it's a conglomeration of things. I do think that having the support from my parents and from my husband has been essential. I also think vitality. Vitality is huge. I come in here and there's not a friendly face. Everybody is so kind and nice, and I see y'all every day, 6 days a week, and I don't have that. I work from home, so I don't see anybody else except for family. And the workouts, it's like I look forward to seeing those workouts every day and what it holds, and they're fun, and it never gets old.
Did you kind of get to know Teresa after the whole getting you in here?
Not really, because she comes at a different time than earlier. I do. Yeah. So okay. I don't really see her here.
Her and her husband's really cool. Yeah. Have to connect y'all or something, get her to come to your class.
Yeah, we should do that.
Now, do you think that this will be what would stop you? What would derail your progress at this point in time? Like I listen to this, I see the evolution of starting with just nutrition. Now you've added all these different layers to it. What do you think would derail your progress? I'm just curious to see. I don't see this ever ending for you.
So, I think that is a fear that I have way in the back of my head, but it becomes less and less because I know that I have a support system in place. And this summer I've sort of played with that a little bit. We've had a couple of vacations and I've gone off of keto and enjoyed myself, not overindulged, but enjoyed myself on those vacations. And it was super easy to come back, get back into my habits, go back eating keto, go back to the gym, and I didn't skip a beat.
I think maybe the fear is a real positive part of it, where if a little bit of fear, I think, can be a motivator for people that they can look back and say, gosh, I remember how much work this took to get here, and now it doesn't seem like a lot of work for you, but that fear of, gosh, can I imagine starting back at zero? And I think now every time you go on vacation or you have a couple days where you slip or whatever, it just gives you that much more confidence that 1 or 2 days doesn't matter. It's kind of like in the beginning, the first 30 days were so important because it was day 7 and you're like, man, if I've only done this strict for 7 days and I have 2 days that are off the wagon, now all of a sudden I'm almost a third of the time I haven't developed any good habits. But now the longer that you stick with this, the more you can fit those little blips in there, because it's just a fraction of the time that you've been able to stay disciplined. So the longer that you do this, it's like Phil now. Philip has been on keto for 4 or 5 months. He's making some changes. He's got things figured out. He's getting better at it every single month. And he'll get to a point where he'll be able to make a decision and say, you know what, I'm going to choose to get off of it for X, Y, or Z for a couple days, but then I'm going to come right back to it. And I think you have to have the ability to do that, or it just doesn't become sustainable.
Agreed. And I think just having been in it this long, and the stuff that we do in the workout, like I'm doing things that I never thought I would be able to do. And so I've learned that I am capable. I have more confidence about myself and my capabilities. And maybe that's really what it all is I know I can do it now because I've been doing it.
I would imagine self-confidence is a big piece of this.
You don't want to go back. Like if you probably somewhere in the back's like, God, like you said, I used to have to scale it up, down.
Yeah.
You're probably like, not that instance, but somewhere in there you're like, I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah,
I'm not going back to that. So if you mess up or you go on a vacation, it's really easy to go right back to keto or whatever you're doing, because you're like, subconsciously you're like, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
That was terrible. Yeah.
Would you say that it was more difficult if you took the first 60 days of this period of time that's really worked for you versus the first 60 days of the appetite suppressant? Would you say that those two, which is more difficult, which was the easier first 60, if that makes sense?
I mean, the appetite suppressant was probably a little bit easier. But it would be not that much difference between the two.
And I wonder if that's it's frustrating when I hear, because we hear that a lot, where someone will put their trust into a dietitian or whoever it might be, and the answer is, well, let's prescribe you medication or a prescription that can do this. When really it's trying to figure out, how do I change the lifestyle to make it sustainable long term? And I think some people look at it and say, okay, well, I'd rather just take that pill versus, well, now I got to go work out. I got to go. Not only do I got to eat right, but now I have to work out and put the time into that. And now I have to, count my macros or whatever it might be. And I think those steps get easier and easier once you get through and you have some success and you build that self-confidence to where now I believe that you can toy with a couple different things now. There's some really cool things I think that, Jess will start to kind of say, okay, well, now that you've got this confidence, we can toy with things that maybe you couldn't toy with before, because the downside is if something doesn't work, now we kind of we lose some ground, and we don't know if that's going to cause kind of this trigger of, I don't really know if I want to keep doing this. So you got to be careful in the beginning, but now you've got all this huge foundation built. You can really be creative with, with the way you train, what you're doing with strength versus, aerobic capacity, that type of stuff. So I think this will really be a fun time for you. And I got to imagine, has this changed outside the gym for you? Has it made things easier with your kids? How has it changed that part of it?
Oh, it definitely. I mean, day-to-day life is a lot easier to live. I'm less self-conscious about different activities that I do. And we just got back from the mountains last week, and, I want to go for that hike. Now I would like to go on a really hard hike, and I have to scale it for my 4-year-old child. But we were able to go and do that sort of things. I'm able to go to Tweetsie Railroad and not think about riding a ride with my child because I'm too big. Mm-hmm. I mean, it allows me a lot of freedom and a lot of activity that I wouldn't have been able to do.
I think that's always the fun part about seeing people that make these lifestyle changes, how their life outside the gym is adjusted. I think that they are all of a sudden now. I would imagine a decade ago you would have been like, gosh, I wonder where we can go for a hike. You're like, I'm not going on a hike.
Yeah, exactly.
Hike, what are you talking about?
Yeah, my mom was the one that always wanted to do that, and I rolled my eyes.
Yeah.
But now I'm dragging her.
Yeah. I think that's so cool, and I think it's really cool when you see someone put all this time in, and they reap all the benefits. I think so many people have this short term, the short term kind of the goal of, hey, I want these results and I want them right now, and it's you're setting yourself up for failure in that, where if you can just, buckle up for that long ride and understand that this is going to be a journey. In 2019, I'm sure Sarah Helms didn't want to know that, hey, 3 years from now, you're going to be on a podcast talking about all the success you've had. You've been like, 3 years? I don't know if I want to do this for 3 years.
It's a long commitment.
I want to make it like a month,
Yeah.
And then, 1 month turns into 6 months, 6 months turns into a year. And now here you are, on the doorstep of slinging barbells around. So I think there's a lot of people out there that will listen to your story, and it will give them the hope that they need, the confidence that they need just to start, and I don't know if there's, if there's a lesson to be learned out there other than just, I think, starting
sure.
from day one and just seeing what happens and finding maybe the first step is you've got to find a group of people that truly want to see you succeed. And I think Jess has been the first person that is really good at that, where I am not that person. I'm not the person that is going to be a motivational person, where I will use some different tactics than Jess is much better at this, and she's had so much more success than I would have ever dreamed of having, but it's because of her personality.
If I'd started keto with Steve and he was my nutritionist, I'd be off of it. I listened to Jess. When he found out, she told me I could have a couple keto treats. He's like, what is that? I didn't get those.
I didn't get keto treats.
Like, you don't get that.
I said, she told me I could have keto treats at like the 12-month mark.
I was like 3 weeks in.
He's at day 27 and eating something. I said, what are you doing? Jess
I sent it to Jess, like an ice cream bar, one of those keto Halo Top bars. Can I have this one or this one? And she's telling me, he's like, what are you doing texting her? You can't have that stuff. I was like, she said I could. He's like, oh my gosh.
So I think what we should do, Sarah, is we come back in like 9 to 12 months and we see what the next iteration looks like. You've taken every step. I wonder what that next step is. How the macros go, if it stays with that, and we get a glimpse of what this long-term sustainable nutrition change is, because that's the thing. It's no longer a diet. It's not a diet for you. It's
not.
Just
it's
what
lifestyle.
you do. Yeah.
This is what you do. This is who you are. And I think, have you, the last question I have for you is, have you had pushback from those around you, like friends, not family, but friends that...
I have through the process. I mean, I've gotten, well, I heard keto's not good long term, or, it might hurt your kidneys, but I haven't had any negative effects. I've had positive effects when I've gone to the doctor. So,
Because you get blood work and stuff like that done, right? At the doctor, and everything's good.
Everything's good.
That's what I'm saying.
So better than it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that the overall, like the blood work's great. And I think that's it's a good way to kind of just confirm that things are going well. But I think that the bottom line is, if someone feels great, if their self-confidence is through the roof, I don't really care what they're doing.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, keep doing it.
Yeah.
If that is...
Your weight came off, you're PRing in the gym, you can go on hikes, you can do it, like your life
happy.
Changed. Like, that's a big difference.
Nobody was worried
Yeah.
when I was eating a bag of Cheetos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't care about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the pushback that always bothers me, is that people, they see success and they're jealous, they're envy of that success.
Yeah.
They don't want you to be the disciplined one, because then it makes them feel like, wow, I'm not I'm way behind. So you kind of feel that people trying to pull you down a little bit. And I think it's great that, again, you've got this support structure. And I'm actually going to go home tonight thinking to myself, gosh, Daniel right now is eating peanut butter and chocolate chips on the couch. That's exactly what.
Sounds really good.
What I want to do at 6 p.m. tonight is be sitting down on the couch, eating peanut butter and chocolate chips, and I know that Daniel's going to do it. And I'm going to be mad at him. So next time I coach him, I'm going to get in and I'm going to get it.
Okay,
I'm going to get it.
I'll have to apologize to her tonight.
But thank you, Sarah. This has been great. I really appreciate you coming on here, and we will have to do this again in the next 12 months and see where you're going from here.
I think she'll be in CrossFit then.
Okay.
That would be awesome. Thank you for having me. It's been
Absolutely.
a lot of fun.
All right.
So.
All right, guys. This is Built by Vitality Podcast. We'll catch you next time.